This is what scientists first thought Therizinosaurus looked like, a giant sea turtle. This is what scientists first thought Therizinosaurus looked like, a giant sea turtle with claws as long as swords. You might have seen a Therizinosaurus for the first time in Jurassic World, but in the 1950s, no one was picturing that animal yet. In the late 1940s, a Soviet-Mongolian expedition entered the Gobi Desert. There, they found the first fossils of Therizinosaurus. In 1954, a paleontologist named Malev studied those remains and gave them a name for the very first time. Therizinosaurus means scythe lizard. Cheloniformis means turtle-shaped, because Malev believed the bones came from a giant turtle-like reptile. He imagined a creature that lived near water, using its claws to cut or pull aquatic plants. But something felt wrong about this. These claws didn't make sense for a sea animal. In 1970, another paleontologist looked at Malev's fossils again. The turtle idea began to fall apart. These weren't sea turtle claws. They looked like they were built for grasping. They seemed to belong to an unknown theropod dinosaur instead. Theropods were a huge group of dinosaurs. At the time, the best known ones were predators, such as Tyrannosaurus rex or Allosaurus. Fast animals built to hunt. So if Therizinosaurus was a theropod, maybe it was a predator too. And if it was a predator, maybe those huge claws were weapons. It all seemed to add up. Therizinosaurus was a hunter. For years, that's all anyone had. Claws and a few bone fragments. Complete skeletons are usually rare. Therizinosaurus stayed scattered. So scientists worked with what they had. But more fossils appeared. From its relatives. Not enough to rebuild Therizinosaurus completely, but enough to understand it better. These new species had long necks, small heads, wide bodies, and heavy hips. They were theropod dinosaurs, but their bodies did not look ready to sprint after prey. Their teeth looked better for plants. Their bellies looked built for digestion. Even their feet were strange, broad and heavy, made to carry weight instead of moving like a classic predator. Therizinosaurus was still a theropod, but scientists reached a different conclusion. This whole group hadn't been hunting. It had been herbivorous the entire time. So Therizinosaurus started to finally look like a giant plant-eating sloth. But even this version was not the final one. For years, scientists kept finding more relatives. Each one added a new piece of understanding. Then, in 1999, scientists added a detail that made the previous ideas feel outdated. Feathers. Not on a small, quick predator. On this giant, clawed herbivore. The clue came from another relative. Preserved alongside its bones were thin, feather-like structures. Not flight feathers, just a coat. But it changed the picture completely. 2 years later, another relative confirmed it. Feathered, plant-eating, and unmistakably like Therizinosaurus. But after all of that, the claws were still causing confusion. If not to hunt, what were they actually for? Recent studies made them look much less useful in a fight. They were long and dramatic, but surprisingly weak under stress. If not just for display, they may have worked more like gardening tools. Then the claws of another relative were discovered. And what made this discovery extra special was not just the bone discovered. It was what survived around it. A layer of keratin. And this is important because when we find fossil claws, we usually only find the bone inside the claw. The outer layer is gone. So we are not always seeing the full shape the animal had when it was alive. For once, scientists could see how much the keratin could add around the bone. The claw became longer and sharper. It also made the hand easier to understand. These were claws that could grab, pull, and bring plants closer to the mouth. But even now, Therizinosaurus is not completely finished. We do not understand it fully. Its body is still built from fragments, from relatives and comparisons, from clues that keep changing. But one thing is for sure. This is the closest modern reconstruction of Therizinosaurus we can build today.